All right, everybody, I should be coming live at you. I know it's been a while, so forgive me for that. But yeah, I got a good webinar planned for tonight. Hopefully, a good one for participation, and hopefully, everyone will get on board sooner than later, and we'll have a good turnout. And let me know when you're out there. Throw some hellos or happy faces or whatever, likes across the screen, and we'll get to going, or leave a comment. Let me know you're there. Let me know you can hear me. And then when we get a few viewers, I will get into presenting and getting on with the subject at hand. So we're just going to wait for everybody to get on board. Meantime, hopefully everyone's having a good beginning of the summer, and we'll get going. So Melinda's here, and a few others. So just let me know in the comment section that you're there, because I don't want to start too early and then have people miss everything. And I'll get to the PowerPoint presentation, and hopefully everyone will like what I have to say. But it's time to dig a little deeper, and that's what we're after today. So hopefully we're going to get there. So I guess everyone can see. What's going on there. I don't know what happened there, but I'm back. So hopefully you can see and hear me. So, yeah, so I wanted to talk about, it's been raised over and over again recently, and it's a common theme that I've had to repeat myself about for decades now, years and years and years, that people who struggle with physique transformation and weight loss goals over and over again are actually having the external struggle being representative of a deeper internal struggle that they don't recognize, refuse to recognize, or deny to recognize. And that's what I want to get into. So hit your share buttons, hit your emoticons, let me know you're out there. And once again, could be timing or whatever, but it's funny how many people want these webinars until you actually do them, and then they don't show up. So hopefully they'll rewatch later. I'm going to just get into it because I got a lot to say. And again, hopefully people will be curious about the deeper internal struggle, and then keep in mind the things that I am saying as we go through it, and identify whether this could be you, because a lot of people are in denial of the internal struggle that I will get to as we go along. So just let me bring in the PowerPoint. Let me know. Can you all still hear me okay? Everything's good? And is that a good picture? Or would you rather that I did something like that? Is that a better picture? So just let me know in the comment section so I can start and get right into it. Because like I said, I've really got a lot to say. So hopefully you guys will be in there and everyone can still see and hear me okay. So how to finally stop your self-sabotage, what I've learned coaching clients for 30 plus years now. For some reason, it has become evident again just recently. I seem to have been seeing the pattern repeat itself over and over again. And it's something I just said, you know what, I got to do another webinar. And then when I asked on Instagram and stuff if people would be interested in such a webinar, the response was overwhelming. So I just really, really want to get into it because, you know, as a online coach, sometimes it's hard to help people who refuse to accept where their problem really lies. And after decades of doing this, I know when people's problems are the actual external struggle versus the internal struggle. So we're going to get into how to finally stop the self-sabotage and deal with the internal struggle, identify what it is, and then get onto it. So these patterns hold true for everyday sustainable weight loss for competitors that I've trained, and true whether you're young, whether you're old. In the last year, I've had young people with issues, body image, diet issues, weight loss issues, and of course, right up until people who get older when it's even harder to tackle these things. But it's even harder still to tackle these things if you refuse to admit where the actual struggle is, and you confuse the weight loss as the real struggle when it's actually something else. So, as I said, now 30 plus years I've been doing this, and there's certain patterns that I've noticed again and again and again. And this was just as true when I worked with pro bodybuilding champions as it is now when I also work with everyday people who are struggling. And this is for the people who are actually struggling. I'm not talking about people who are being lazy. I'm talking about people who are actually struggling with the back and forth of physique transformation and weight loss, succeed, fail, and all the rest of it. So hopefully that relates to you. And if it does, you're in the right place. So first, you have to know what the real actual struggle is. And like I said earlier, a lot of people remain in denial of it. I'll give you one example. I just had a client who competed back in the day, competed with me and masked his internal struggle by competing. And then years and years later, he got a hold of me because he gained about 50 pounds because of age and life and having kids and all the rest. But he gained the weight because he still confused the external struggle as the struggle, not recognizing his real and true struggle was an internal one, a deeper one that I pointed out to him all the time, refused to accept until he finally got a hold of me some 30 years later, and a light bulb went off and said, oh, I get it. So I want you guys to get it too if you are the ones who are struggling. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to, and can everybody see these slides okay? Hopefully you can see all this, and I'll just put my big fat head down shrunken so you can see the PowerPoint better. So today I'm going to break this down, the internal struggle, into 3 keys to success to stop the self-sabotage. Now, each key is going to build on the previous one, so pay attention and take notes. Again, one of my frustrations I'm going to tell you about coming up because it's that people don't participate. They think you can just be a passive absorber of information and expect change to happen. If you don't participate, change doesn't happen. So this is going to be a big deal. So the key, again, I'm going to give you 3 keys to stop self-sabotage. I'm going to tell you how to put them together. But the first key is it's not about a special diet. It's not about a program. It's about the mindset behind the program. As you've heard me say a million times, quality of mindset determines quality of behavior. What does that have to do with an external struggle versus an internal struggle? If you failed at weight loss and physique transformation goals over and over again, your external struggle is merely a reflection of a deeper internal struggle. You think the struggle is with weight loss, physique transformation, etc., when that's just a reflection of a deeper internal struggle. So hopefully that's piqued your curiosity to want to hear more and try to get beyond this, because people think their external struggle, weight and body image, is the issue, and the diet and fitness industry exaggerate and emphasize this myth because it's profitable for them to do so. But it's not about the external struggle for so many of you. That's just a reflection of the deeper issue. And all the advertising strategies of the fitness industry are almost designed to cover this up so they can, say nothing to see here, everything to see over here. And if you're someone who struggles, then you need to stop looking where they want you to look and start looking where you need to look. And I'm going to get into that as well. So you've likely suspected for a long time now, if you're someone who struggles, that something deeper must be going on. No one is that big a failure. That's the first thing I want to get across, is the defeatist attitude that I get from so many people. I understand if you fail over and over again, of course you're going to feel defeated. But have you actually failed the system, or has the system failed you? Now, I'm not talking about making excuses. I'm talking about not recognizing where the struggle is and how to conquer it. So that's very, very important. So most of you who struggle probably recognize or suspect something deeper going on, but you just can't identify it. And you just end up too swayed and seduced by the next external solution, the next magic promise, the next magic diet, and the next one after that, whether it's a cleanse or a detox or keto or all the rest of the nonsense, till it becomes such an ingrained habit for you to look for vogue trends that it's no wonder that you keep falling for it all, because the industry is built upon seducing you to those kind of external solutions to internal problems. But what if you stopped falling for it and looked for the solutions to the struggle in a different place, and recognize that your external struggle, what you think the actual struggle is with weight and physique transformation, is a reflection of a deeper internal struggle? And a lot of the times I just can't get people to recognize that, because of the seduction of the industry is just so great. And we'll get into that as well. So hopefully this is making sense. If it's making sense, please let me know. I don't want to be talking to myself, because I took a long time to prepare this seminar, and I wanted to actually reach people, touch people, and get people motivated to action. So one of the problems with webinars like these, one of the frustrations for me personally, like I said, isn't just the work I prepare in getting them ready, but it's my honesty with you can only be weighed with your honesty back, and to weigh in with honest comments, because this is, after all, a webinar. And of course, any expert's honest sharing won't work if you can't be honest with yourself. And this is our starting point, self-honesty, in that I expect you to share. I want you to share. I don't want you to be a wallflower and not have anything to say and participate. If you're tuning in because the topic resonated with you, external issue being reflective of an internal issue, then you need to participate to what I call excavate the deepness and get at it. So I got to say hello to an old friend who's just appeared. So hey, Nick, I see your comment there, and thanks for being here, man. Touch me up on email or Facebook sometime. So let me ask you some questions as we really start. I'm going to really get into it here. And I want you to respond in kind with a comment or a check mark or a like or whatever, an emoticon across the screen. But you got to participate in order to start letting it resonate. Participate equals resonate, not the other way around. So let's get into it. Let me ask you some questions. So how many of you have gone out to eat and felt pressured to give up your diet strategy because of what other people were eating or ordering or saying to you about your diet or whatever? So how many of you can relate to that question? How many of you have felt self-conscious bringing your own food with you somewhere where you know other people will not be bringing their own food? For instance, gatherings, parties, weddings, events, whatever. That kind of thing. How many of you have ever said, "Oh, screw it," and just chose crap food for no real hunger reason other than what was going on in your own head? So how many relate to that comment? So Louise is just saying she's always been the wallflower. She cannot follow through with anything with my weight loss. Well, we're going to get into that, Louise, and I'm hoping that this resonates. This is exactly for people like you. So stay tuned and participate, and keep the comments coming. So how many of you have drank alcohol frequently enough that it gets in the way of your weight loss efforts? Or it could be something else. Maybe it's marijuana or something else that you just feel gets in the way. How many of you grew up in a family where at least one parent overly focused on dieting and or body image? This is very, very common, especially for ladies. Children tend to model what they see, not what they're told. And a lot of people grew up with at least one parent who was overly focused on dieting and body image that negatively impacted them. So now, along those lines, how many of you still seek approval and validation from a parent or both parents for your diet or your weight or your own parenting or whatever choices you were making in your life? And I'll give you an example. I've had more than one client in the past who's doing fine with their goals for physique transformation and weight loss, and then when their parents, their adult parents, come to visit, or they come over for weekly dinner or whatever, the comments always make them run and sabotage themselves because there's so much family clashing there. So there can be examples like that where family just drives you so nuts in the emotion of it that you end up self-sabotage. All of the above questions are common saboteurs I witness all the time with people writing me that, as you can see, have very little to do with a diet strategy or a training protocol, right? They have very little to do with the actual external solution you're looking for, but they can be obstacles. So Kevin's just saying spent 15 years in classical ballet, around it all the time. So I think you mean body image stuff. So yeah. So, and a lot of people, they are swayed by what we call internet noise, like Tony's saying, like, intermittent fasting and keto intermittent fasting, and, building upon one stacked sellable solution to another. So these are important things to start to consider. How many of you follow, for instance, enviable physical specimens on social media, and you think you follow them for motivation? How many of you follow more than one of these types of people for this reason, a fitness model or whatever? Because research shows the exact opposite, that following these people doesn't motivate you at all. It actually depresses you. There's an actual new psychological neuroses called Facebook envy that now requires treatment, and there's a correlation between the number of people that people follow on social media and levels of depression as well. So you might think you're following someone online because their physiques motivate you, when in actuality they do the exact opposite and demotivate you, and sometimes lead to depression as well. So how many can relate to that kind of scenario? So again, it's about being honest so you can uncover these kind of things, and we can get past it. So Perry's just talking about keto, intermittent fasting, carb cycling, all external solutions to an external problem, if the problem was actually external, but we're going to get beyond that. We're not going to talk about any of that. So what kind of other scenarios can you think of that derail your diet strategy efforts and consistency? Because if you're on here and you're listening to this, it's because you do suspect that there must be something deeper. There must be some internal struggle that's being reflected in the external struggle. So what kind of other situations derail your diet strategy efforts and consistency and your goals for weight loss and physique transformation? When you add all these scenarios together, how often do these levels of sabotage happen to you? Do they happen never, rarely, frequently, so often that it ruins your efforts at weight control? Remember, if you can't be honest, then my honesty isn't going to help you very much if you can't be honest with yourself. So again, following all these Insta stars on Instagram, like Tony's saying, that's just one cog. That's just one spoke in a wheel that can keep the self-sabotage happening. So very, very important as well. So I want to get to some commonly held beliefs along these lines, right? So if you're looking at the PowerPoint, here's the quotes that I hear all the time that people don't understand are actual false beliefs, or they're actual lies they tell themselves. So I just need the right diet, or if I can only find that magic program, then I'd be able to ... Just tell me what to eat and I'll eat it. That's probably the biggest self-lie that's out there, right? Because how many who struggle say that to themselves all the time? Just tell me what to eat and I'll eat it. And then they go from low carb to high carb to plant-based to keto and back and forth, and they're doing what they're told to eat, and then they're not doing what they're told to eat. And that just ends up being even more confusing, right? So you end up saying, well, if I can only find that magic program, I know I'll try if it fits your macros, or I know I'll try keto, or I know I'll try intermittent fasting, or like I said, you try all of them, right? Or combinations of all of them. So what ends up happening is what we call honeymooning, right? So you end up honeymooning again and again and again, Why? Because you're focused on external solutions to an internal problem, and those two are never going to meet. If you were the type of person for whom these behavior modification type of protocols worked, then you would no longer be struggling, right? If that worked for you, then you wouldn't be going from one to the next. And at one point, it's very common for people who struggle. You've likely claimed every single new Vogue trend out there worked for you, and yet you inevitably ended up pinballing to the next Vogue trend and then the next one after that. So doesn't that sound familiar? So yes, that's very, very important. So we can get into people who want to eat and eat and eat, and the healthy stuff isn't taste as good, but we can also get into commonalities of that, Louise, like, a moment on the lips, a lifetime on the hips, and all that kind of stuff. But that's not the point of this. So you're getting where I'm going. So why do you do these things? What exactly is the internal struggle that I'm talking about? And a lot of you are going to wave this off, but stay tuned. I want to struck your curiosity enough that you'll entertain the notion. So it's not the diet, it's not the magic program. And the more you keep being seduced by the industry that these are the solutions, then the more you're likely to continue to struggle. So that's a really, really important thing. If you failed at weight loss and physique transformation efforts over and over again, and that's who this webinar is targeted to, then the only way for you to succeed is by putting self-acceptance first. Self-acceptance, that is the internal struggle. Think about it. When you struggle with physique and weight loss transformation goals, what you're really trying to do is have a level of self-acceptance that you've never had before. That's the internal struggle. Without self-acceptance, you consistently give away your personal power and seek personal validation from other people and other resources. That's why I was asking you those questions above. So that is a really, really big deal. And then, a lot of you are going to say, well, duh, Scott, I already know that. But do you? Because I've preached this message to the same people for years and years and years, and they get it, but they don't get it, because they'll get it and then they'll write me about, oh, what do you think of a cleanse? Or what do you think of a juice fast? Or what do you think of this? And I'm like, all of that is just another mode of failing to embrace that self-acceptance is the actual internal struggle. And now you're back into being seduced by the dark side of the force and looking for an external solution to an internal issue. So is it what you truly embrace and unconsciously believe that self-acceptance is the thing? So that's what you're really after. Weight loss is the vehicle that you think delivers that to you, the self-acceptance to you, or the changed body image. But that's a false belief. Weight loss and physique transformation, that's the middleman you've created that actually gets in the way of what you really want, which is a level of self-acceptance you've never had before. So you have an upside down false belief, and this is why you fail and continue to struggle, as Catherine said. Boom. So that's very, very important as well. And we need to understand that. So, Perry, I get your point, and I'll talk about that later, but that's not at the root of what this actual webinar is about. This webinar is about elements of psychology and how they affect how people struggle with different things when other people don't struggle with them. So that is really, really important. But this struggle, this back and forth with consistent failure or achievement failure, weight loss, weight gain, weight loss, weight gain. This is understandable because this is the only solution you were ever sold to believe in the fitness and diet industry. Remember, industries seek to profit off of people's insecurities, and nothing leaves a deeper insecurity void than a lack of authentic self-acceptance. So I put that in bold. I'm not going to try to post that here, but somebody post that. Nothing leaves a deeper insecurity void than a lack of authentic self-acceptance. And you need to think about that, and you need to ask yourself, is that actually me? Because I know people, like I said, that I've helped over the course of decades, first to compete, and then after they've lost their body beautiful, decades later writing me, now they have goals of weight loss, etc. So nothing leaves a deeper insecurity void than a lack of authentic self-acceptance. Let me say that again, and then somebody comment it, and I will post the comment for sure. So again, now let me get into some actual examples. So we talk about how to change this self-acceptance and turn this equation right side up, but let me give you actual examples. Now, I'm going to use an example you've seen before because of client confidentiality. I'll give you a couple other examples below, but then I have to change people's names and things like that. So I wanted to get a real deal thing. So here's Ange, which you've seen me use before. So how she solved her internal struggle, 60 pounds lost and kept it off for over a decade now. Don't you think that that's something worthy of considering? So again, in the early days, if you look at the big fat fatty Ange, as we joke about, on the left, she had it too. The more she focused on diets, the bigger she got, and the more depressed that made her. And the bigger she got and the more depressed she got, the further away from self-acceptance she moved. And then the more the allure and the seduction of the external solution of the next diet and the next external solution came, and on that hamster wheel went. So very, very important that you understand this and you see it. So let me just do a couple more shots of Ange recently, and that has allowed her diet freedom, going from an omnivore diet to a plant-based diet, to a vegan diet, that kind of thing, because you have the self-acceptance first and you're not afraid to try new things, because what if it doesn't work, and what if it does this, and what if it does that? So you have to, this is the problem with a lack of self-acceptance, is the amount of fear and doubt it creates, and then that creates confusion when you're looking for solutions, and I'll get to that as well. So it's really, really important. When you lack authentic self-acceptance, it becomes easy for self-doubt and fear to take its place. Think about that. And fear makes for a horrible partner when you are trying to accomplish something that you deem is important to you, whether it's weight loss, physique transformation, or whatever. So fear makes for a horrible partner. It makes you susceptible to self-sabotage before you even start your journey. And that's why I asked you questions like that earlier on. On an unconscious level, your true belief here is, once I lose the weight, I can accept myself and be happy. But that is a lie that you tell yourself, and it's upside down. It can be true for some people, but then those people won't struggle. And I'll get to that in a minute. It's like the old analogy that you can't remember where you put your car keys, so you go outside to look under the street lights because the lighting's better outside under the street light, even though you never park under that street light and your car keys are inside your house. And this is what you are doing every time you try to undertake a diet to solve an internal struggle of a lack of self-acceptance. Self-acceptance is the foundation. It's not the place you get to. It's the place you start from. So let me give you an example I see all the time. Just last week, as I was putting all this together, a person writes me who expresses struggling with weight for years and years, and do I have a program, a beginner program for people who are obese, and what kind of services do I offer? So I sent them back, a list of the services: one-time diet, one-time program, coaching. Strongly recommended the coaching for all these reasons here. And the person wrote me back and said, well, for now, I think I'll just go with a one-time program and see how I do. And then maybe I'll get back to you for coaching later. Almost always, this person, not this exact person, but almost always the example I'm using here, that person is not going to succeed because they're not facing the internal struggle. They are once again trying to treat a symptom and not a cause. So they'll likely honeymoon for a short period again, and then declare another program or diet that one didn't work for them, or even worse, that they failed at again. So again, by not understanding the internal struggle, they attempt to solve it with an external struggle. And when that fails, they get further and further away from actually solving what they're really after. And I'll give you another example that Perry was kind of pointing out at in terms of people's lack of understanding of things. But I'll get people who write me constantly and they'll say Weight Watchers or keto or whatever really works for me, but I just can't stick to it, so I gain all the weight back. Then this is another lie you tell yourself, because that doesn't even sound logical. Because if those things worked for you, then you'd be able to stick to it and keep the weight off. And she changed her diet several times, but she still lost 60 pounds and kept it off. So you can't say something worked for you, but you gained all the weight back. If your goal is to lose the weight to begin with, then how does that thing work for you? It doesn't. So that is a really, really big deal. And we need to start to understand that. So the definition of insanity, folks, what is it? Right? Repeating the same thing and expecting a different result while buying into external solutions to an internal dilemma or an internal struggle is the very definition of insanity, because you're repeating the same formatted habitual response that the industry wants you to repeat, and you're expecting something else to happen. We call that hope over experience. And that continues to reinvent itself in this industry, because everyone will promise you the magic solution, but no one is actually asking you to excavate what the actual struggle is. Because again, if it was an external struggle, then you wouldn't continue struggling year after year, time after time. Those are things that get solved. So the solution is to get the equation right. The equation isn't once I lose the weight, I can be happy and accept myself. The real equation is once I accept myself, I can be happy and lose the weight. Boom. That's what Ange did, and that's how she did it. That's actually how we met, with her writing me about how my writing about this kind of thing helped her to get that equation right in her head. And then as I started this whole webinar, quality of mindset determined quality of behavior, and she was just able to follow suit. Because all of this also shouldn't feel like a struggle. If self-acceptance is the guiding compass, then none of it feels like a struggle. I've never struggled to take weight off for appearances, for photo shoots, for whatever, because I didn't have that external struggle. So I'll get into that a little deeper here. So hopefully this is making sense. If it's making sense, throw some emoticons across the screen. Let me know you're hearing me, because this is for you. It's not for me. So over the years, I've had just as many people come back to me who finally are sick and tired of being sick and tired. So we put a diet strategy in place, but we put it in the back seat. And lo and behold, they lose the weight with no obsession over numbers and apps and all the rest. So do you see the difference? That what you suspected all along may be going on, that it can't just be that I'm on the wrong diet, or I'm like, why do I keep cheating on myself? Why do I keep eating stuff that I know isn't going to take me where I want to go? So because it's an internal struggle, and that internal struggle is for authentic self-acceptance, not the glorified just love yourself crap that passes for wisdom on Instagram and the rest of it. I mean, come on now, let's dig a little deeper and get real about getting real. So hopefully you see the difference, and let's discuss that. Self-sabotage behavior. Let's talk about that specifically. Someone mentioned it earlier on, that they just like eating crappy food, and good food doesn't taste good to them. Or people who end up, binge eating or self-sabotaging, and they don't know why. Actually, you were the only one who does know why. And it boils down to this internal struggle. So too often when you have this equation backwards, you confuse soothing a bruised ego as being the same thing as self-acceptance. Only it's not, because eating out of boredom or anger or frustration or angst or any other emotion just moves you further and further away from authentic self-acceptance, and leads you to even more self-rejection and asking yourself questions that only make the problem worse. For instance, the number one question I keep getting from people who do this and who struggle is, why do I keep doing this to myself? And they don't understand how your brain and how your mind works. It's like putting software in a computer. Your brain seeks to answer the questions you pose to it. So it doesn't solve the dilemma of it, and it doesn't move you to self-acceptance, and you go round and round and round. Think of the brain like software in a computer. Let's use a Google search analogy. So why do I keep doing this to myself? If you do a Google search right now for why is climate change happening, you're going to get a gazillion search engine results that explain to you why climate change is happening, but you're going to get very few that actually tell you how to solve it. So when you put to your mind, why do I keep doing this to myself? Your mind is going to come up with more and more reasons why you keep doing this to yourself. It's not addressing, how do I stop doing this to myself? How can I do better for myself? Okay. And that is what you are really after. So, I get goosebumps talking about this stuff. I get excited. And then I know other people are out there yawning, and they're the exact people I'm trying to reach. So you keep thinking of more diet information and fancier nutrition apps and behavior modification controls and things like intermittent fasting, low carbs, if it fits your macros, all the sexy stuff. And yet none of these solve your weight problem for long, because they don't ever address the actual authentic internal struggle. And when you fail at these behavior modifications formulas, they only serve to reinforce your struggle, your internal struggle. They lead you more towards self-rejection, and they lead you further and further away from authentic self-acceptance. So you got to think about that. Now, I'll give you a couple of examples, a good and a bad. I'm going to change some names here because of client confidentiality, of course. So I have a client, I'll call her Stephanie. So she comes to me, she's hopelessly in love with her fiance, but the relationship is on the verge of splitting up after 15 years. She's following intermittent fasting, and she's trying if it fits your macros. She follows 30 or 40 more fitness models online, and she's just what I call a chocolate mess, right? It's all about her body. It's all about, to the point where her fiance is saying, either you change or we're done after 15 years. Now, I suggested to her the same solution I'm going to offer you below at the bottom when I'm finished here, as I'm formulating my argument, and she never took it. She kept reinvesting in online diet drama and all that stuff. And she kept, last I heard, she was writing me, she was excited because she signed up for an online nutrition course. Now, this person didn't even have any more weight to lose. There was no way she was going to get any leaner without starving and going into a rebound mode where she would eventually gain the weight back and even more weight back, and tried to explain it to her over and over again. And her fiance was frustrated because they couldn't go out for dinner without it being a dilemma. Vacation was a nightmare. If she went on vacation and ate off her diet, then she would pout and be miserable, which spoiled the vacation time for the fiance. If she did go out and stuck to her diet and her training while on vacation, then of course, that was no fun for the fiance either. So there was a clash here. And the clash was because her body was never good enough the way it was. And she was endlessly seduced by online external solutions, where you could see over and over again, like I said, she looked, if you look at Angie's picture now on the right, she looked about like that already. She wasn't going to get any leaner without getting more obsessed about diet and food. And yet that was her goal and her solution. And guess what happened? She said she didn't know what she would ever do if she lost her fiance. And, she signed up for a nutrition course rather than the solution I offered her. And the last I heard, her fiance did in fact leave her, and they were separated, and she was devastated. And yet, how is she looking for her way out of this? By investing in yet another online diet solution to an internal problem. So that's very, very unfortunate. But I have just as many client success stories just this week. Let's call this client Justine. I was happy when she wrote me and she said, I've made a conscious choice this weekend to go off my diet. Her husband and her were going, I can't remember where they were going, but I liked the phrase she used, a conscious choice. And then she was like, thank goodness I don't worry about this stuff anymore. And that's what I want to pose to you who struggle. Do you really want to be someone? Don't you want to be someone who just doesn't worry about this stuff anymore? And like, if you take I leave the pictures of Ange up here, but do you really think Ange has a calorie tracking app or a fitness app on her phone? So I wouldn't be near anyone who lives that way. I would never live that way myself. And that is part of the solution. I live by example. I don't do any of that stuff because self-acceptance is a guiding force for me. And that's what I'm trying to get across. So remember this, a body under constant surveillance can never be free. A body under constant surveillance can never truly be free. So I see that all the time. I see people who take the weight off, like you see in Angie's picture here, but they're obsessed about food. They're just as obsessed about diet and all the online solutions. So they have lost the weight, but they still live life inside the thin cage. And that's unfortunate, very, very, very much so. So that's all number one, the first key. So the second key is the only mindset that works is everything I've just explained to you. Only mindset that's going to work for you long-term is one based in self-acceptance, period. No exceptions. Now, this is the mindset that allowed me to accomplish a world-class physique back in the day. So what do I mean by that? It was like, I didn't want to get a better body to then earn my self-acceptance. I just decided I was going to do bodybuilding and I was going to be good at it. And that was a decision I made, and self-acceptance was the guiding force. So I always said I wasn't a bodybuilder. I was an athlete doing bodybuilding. And then I wasn't trying to earn validation from external sources. I already had that, which allowed me to excel. So success leaves clues. So we keep looking at people who have struggled and lost weight and lost weight and struggled and struggled and lost weight and lost weight and struggled. But what about the people who never had that struggle? Their success leaves clues as well. And you can bet that they are self-connected in a way that people who struggle off and on aren't. So there's no exceptions to this. It's a mindset that my whole book, hopefully you can see it behind me, the anti-diet approach, is all about, and permanent weight loss in that book as well. So let's get this. Self-acceptance is a healing form of energy, not a punishing one. And that's really, really important for you to understand. Self-acceptance is a healing form of energy and not a punishing one. So I'm going to actually try to post that. Let's see how I do here. Let's try to post that on the screen. I don't know if you can see that or not, but we'll just post that up there for you. So that's a really, really important point to know and to ponder and to consider, because most people don't get that. So that's really, really important. And also, the real truth is that healthy thinking leads to healthy habits, which leads to healthy eating. And that's really important as well. It's no longer something you force upon yourself. You don't have to eat good food. It's not like, eat your broccoli, but it's merely just an extension of self-acceptance. You want to treat your body in a way where your body will treat you well back. It's a simple equation. So it's not based on finding validation or self-acceptance. It's based on self-acceptance being the driving force. Can you understand that? Do you see that? Because it's very important. How do you get there? Well, for one, you need to stop thinking that there is a single cause and effect. For instance, that this particular diet, or this particular behavior modification strategy, which is all intermittent fasting and that kind of stuff, equals weight loss. Real self-acceptance is multi-layered, and it requires you to pay attention to what you are paying attention to. So I'm going to post something else up, and hopefully that you will write this down. And I want you to look at it this way. Hopefully I can do this right here. So let me get that up there. So can you see that? Hopefully you can see that. Self-esteem is something you experience, while self-acceptance is something that you do. Boom. Self-acceptance is an underlying driving force for action. Without it, that action is hollow. So that really, really needs to be considered. So self-esteem is something you experience, and self-acceptance is something that you do. So Ange is just posting the link to the anti-diet approach book in the comment section. I'll get to it there. So hopefully you guys, if you have read the book, by all means put your comments in, because I'll get to the comment section at the end of the webinar. As you can tell, I'm trying to get through all my notes to try to help you guys out. So it's very, very important that you understand these things and that you actually move on them. So that's a very, very important thing as well. So at its roots, self-acceptance, authentic self-acceptance, is about refusing to be in an adversarial relationship with yourself. But if you struggle, isn't it true that you're in an adversarial relationship with yourself? Isn't that why you continue to struggle? Because you're working against yourself. You're not working in a relationship with yourself. That's one of the reasons the cycle diet works for people who work the cycle diet, because it's guilt-free indulging, right? If you can't have guilt-free indulging, that's because you're in an adversarial relationship with yourself. So where does your quest for changing your body or losing weight put you in this scenario then? Is it enhancing self-acceptance, or is it destroying self-acceptance? This is the important stuff to consider. So letting go of the struggle is how you find self-acceptance. So I got all kinds of stories like that, like I just showed you, and other clients, people who choose to find the other way, who are use the solution that I'm going to suggest below. I can even tell you, get examples based upon my career in the hardcore years and cheat days. I remember when I was doing appearances everywhere. One of the reasons I moved to Toronto was I had to be near an airport, because I was flying everywhere all the time. And a lot of the times I would fly to do an appearance, and my cheat days were always on Sundays. And I would fly somewhere, and well-meaning hosts would try to take me out for dinner. They'd take me here, they'd take me there. One memory I have in particular, a person who flew me in to do a seminar and a workshop just had to take me to meet her grandparents. Took me into the house. It was beautiful, but put out this big spread of homemade baked goods and all this other stuff. And I made up a story that the flight didn't go well and there was turbulence and I didn't feel that great, but I'd be happy to take that food with me, because I was not going to violate my own rules. And my cheat days was Sunday. And rather than saying that to someone and insulting them, I just made up a story and kept to my own rules and regulations based in self-acceptance. I'll give you another example. I remember my ex-wife Annie, very, very social, the opposite of me. I'm introverted. I prefer solitude and to be alone. She was the exact opposite, out all the time with her friends and stuff. And when she went vegetarian, she started taking her salad dressing with her when she went out with her friends. And I'm talking about a group of friends, 5, 6 people, 4, 5, 6 people, always different. But because self-acceptance was her driving force, she never got grief from the people she went out to eat with. It was never like, oh, well, you're bringing your own salad dressing, or why aren't you eating this, or why aren't you doing that? And within just a few times, people were asking if they could try some of her salad dressing, and they were going to order what she ordered, and they were going to change their diet like she changed it. So there's an old saying, we teach people how to treat us, and that applies to ourselves as well. Without self-acceptance, we're treating ourselves with a lack of self-empowerment, and we're looking for other people to validate us and to tell us we're doing okay, when that should be coming from inside ourselves. So hopefully that makes a lot of sense to you. I'm hoping it will anyway. I'm hoping it does. So Self-acceptance is the only mindset that's going to work if you're a person who struggles, and to learn how to let go of the struggle. You don't battle the struggle, you learn to let go of it. And the third key here is you build self-acceptance a little bit at a time, every day, with specific exercises, and every day is key. So most people think that stuff like a mindset and inner thoughts, they can't be changed. That's just not true. Look, I don't know anyone who has changed who they are in their life more than I have. There's a lot of stories that I'll tell at another time, but look, I went from hardcore bodybuilding world with steroids and all the rest of it to walking away from that world, even though there was $1 million at stake in revenues and stuff. And I changed and I left that world. When I was young and stupid, I was very violent, and now I go out of my way to, catch little animals and let them go in my yard, and I wouldn't step on an ant on purpose. So you can change, but you have to find the driving force to change, and you have to understand where your struggle actually lies. And it certainly doesn't lie if you're someone who's struggling with physique transformation goals and weight loss. That struggle doesn't lie in the next diet that you're going to try. So you can work on this stuff in a positive way, and you can do it easily with just a little bit each day and build that staircase effect until you get to the top of that mountain. But progress takes place a little bit at a time, and that's one of these weird adult quandaries that I've never understood, that progress doesn't take place in one fell swoop. That's another false belief that adults carry around, that you think children would carry around. But people think and act like some issue that they've had for years shouldn't take time to solve, or shouldn't take an investment to solve. I get that all the time on Facebook. I'll post a wise or a pithy remark, and someone will say, okay, but what's the answer? Like, I'm going to have a Facebook answer that's going to solve these issues. It takes a little more than that, and you got to be willing to devote yourself to that. But here's some specific tactical strategies and strategies that I've used with clients. The rubber band exercise that many of you may know of. I get them to wear a rubber band, pay attention to their own thoughts. Every time they have a self-sabotaging thought, they snap the rubber band on their wrist to the point where it hurts a little bit, and they tell themselves to snap out of it. And that's what we call cognitive challenge, cognitive restructuring. I also have sentence completion exercises, journaling exercises. And a lot of the times people will write me and say, well, journaling won't work for me. And my response to that is, compared to what? Compared to all the dieting and re-dieting and lost weight and regained weight, ending up right back where you started or worse? How's that working for you? So to say, just assume that journaling won't work for you when you don't try it for more than a day is a little bit presumptuous at best. So of course, journaling won't work if you don't work it, just like everything else in life. If I give you a weight training program to follow to build muscle and you don't work it, then you're not going to build any muscle. So it's the same thing here. So another one of the examples I've used is to complete these sentences. Food is my enemy because, food is my friend because, food is just food because, food represents something else entirely because, and you fill that out and you see where you end up landing. And that tells you an awful lot about where your internal struggle is in terms of food and things like that. So really, really important stuff to consider when you have that. I'm just going to post this up here if I can do that right. Let me just see if I can get this up there for you, because this one has really, really helped a lot of people. So food is my enemy because, food is my friend because, food is just food because, and then food represents something else entirely for me because. And that's really, really important. And that actual one exercise has helped so many people gain insight into their actual internal struggle. So that's really, really important as well. So that's how you get to see everything the way you need to see it. It doesn't need to be a lot of time each day. You make progress a little bit at a time. You build on small wins. And that is really, really important as well. And then you build and build and build. I call that the staircase effect. You have to walk up one stair to get to the next stair, to get to the next stair, to get to the first flight, to get to the second flight, and to get to the top where the view is the best. So in summary, you've got 3 keys to stop the self-sabotage, right? You've got accepting that it's not about the external struggle that you think it is. If your struggle has been ongoing for a long time, back and forth, then that external struggle with weight loss or physique transformation is only a representation or a reflection of an internal struggle. And that internal struggle is based on seeking self-acceptance rather than having self-acceptance, authentic self-acceptance. And the third key is you can build that self-acceptance as a foundation a little bit at a time with very specific exercises. So that really, really important. So just I started by asking you a bunch of questions. Let me ask you a question. What would happen if you embrace these 3 keys? Not just consciously as in, oh yeah, Scott, I know that already. That's a big frustrating thing for me. I mean, if you really embrace them, what if you committed yourself to the inner mindset rather than the outer program? And for instance, go back to those pictures of Ange, 60 pounds, that weight is gone. That former big fat fatty person no longer exists. But it wasn't because of a diet she followed. And yet, if she were to post that picture as a stranger, the first 100 questions she would get would be, what diet did you follow? What workout did you do? And it had nothing to do with any of those things. So acceptance that the external struggle is a reflection of something deeper. What if you committed yourself to a mindset of self-acceptance and not a diet mindset? Key number 2, right? And I know what you think. Well, if I don't think about diet and weight every day, I'll gain even more weight. That's a common thing I hear when I try to coach people away from being seduced by the dark side of the force, as I call it. So they think if I'm not focused on diet and weight every day, I'll gain even more weight. Yeah, Ange had that idea too. And guess what? She got fatter and she got more depressed. So if it's not working for you, why do you keep repeating why do you keep playing that same tape in your head? Because it's actually just a fear you have that if you abandon your obsession with all that you're going to get bigger and fatter. You don't know if that's true because you've never tried it. And you've never tried it with the right guiding force mindset. So that's very, very important as well. So, but it's a common thing that I hear back all the time. If I don't think about diet and weight every day, I'll gain even more weight. But that's a lie. And the very belief is the one thing that's literally weighing you down, because fear is also disempowering. I've had clients who weigh themselves after every meal. Do you want to live like that? It's earth-shattering, which is why I proposed the solution I'm proposing below. What if you felt yourself improving just that much each and every day? So then instead of getting caught in diet yo-yoing and loops of repeated failure and little bits of external achievement only to see it all disappear, instead you built each day on one little inner struggle success after another. You built that staircase effect. So think about that. So improving a little bit every day. Ange didn't lose 60 pounds in one day. She lost 60 pounds over time by encouraging self-acceptance and getting the right mindset, so that the quality of mindset determined the quality of her behavior. And that is how she was able to end that negative feedback loop that kept her big and depressed and sad, and helped her transform where she is now. So even if you think about your external weight loss or physique goals right now, what do you think you'd be able to achieve if you put these things in place and truly worked it? You worked the inner solution, the internal solution, and you stopped working the problem, which is the external representation. Because if it was an external issue and it was just a matter of eat this, not that, tell me what to eat and I'll eat it, you would have succeeded 50 times over by now. You're not that weak. You're not that pathetic. You're just on the wrong track, going the wrong way. So this is what I'm trying to present to people who struggle. So, and we got some good comments here, and I'm going to get to them. So, how do you do this? How do you get on board the self-acceptance train? Well, it just so happens that I've developed a whole course on this, the Food Freedom course, and I have a whole week's worth of exercises for the course that are free. So you can get an entire week's module from the Food Freedom course for free as an email course. No money to spend for that first module to see what it's about, how how it changes your mindset. It's just about taking the time to invest and help yourself. So there's the link, and I'll get to it in a minute. But would you want to start working on this for free? Are you worth it? That's the thing I want to propose to people. Are you worth it? Remember the client I mentioned earlier, Stephanie, who said she wouldn't know what to do if she lost her love affair of 15 years with her fiance, and she lost that person. And I recommended to her over and over again to take this course, and instead she signed up for an online nutrition course and started following other fitness models and ended up alone. And I wish her the best, but she could have solved this issue and kept the love of her life, and instead lost that person, and lost what meant the most to her because of an obsession with an external solution to an internal problem. So I also have exercises in my book, Permanent Weight Loss, that you see behind me, and the anti-diet approach. Now, look, you can also do nothing and go it alone. You can turn this off and say, oh, that was an interesting seminar, but and then you can go right back to surfing the internet for fitness models and fancy exercises and the rest. But if you're a person who struggles, you can just start working on this any day. I've merely collected the exercises I know work the best with clients who struggle with food and diet issues. And I've been doing this for all 4 decades now. And I've put them in a detailed online course, and I've put these ideas in the books as well. So do you want to get real about getting real? People who say they want to solve, they suspect there's something deeper beneath the surface of why they can't lose the weight, and then you point them in the right direction, but you can lead the horse to water, but it's up to you to make that thing work. So it's about getting real, and there's an old axiom that says people don't buy what they need, people buy what they want. It's an old marketing axiom. And I get it. You want the weight loss and the physique transformation. No one's saying you can't have that. I used Ange as an example of 60-pound weight loss. So we get the want. But what you need to take you there isn't the next diet or magical infomercial fat-burning workout. Aren't you tired of being on that hamster wheel? Do you want to be 50 years old and still running that same agenda inside your head where it gets harder and harder? I see that as a nowhere solution. So you need a self-empowering, self-programming agenda. And just for sheer personal peace of mind, you should want that too. This is one of the things where what you need and what you want should actually meld together. So check it out. And I hope you'll share this webinar with someone you know who can benefit from it, or share with them the Food Freedom course link, because that first module is completely free. So that I think is a really, really important thing to consider. And what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to come back here with my big fat head, and I'm going to, start showing you some of the comments that came in. And who we should all thank for continuing to allow me to use her pictures and stuff because of privacy issues with current clients. I don't use current clients. I try not to use current clients. But there's one link to Permanent Weight Loss, the book. There's lots of comments coming in. So there's a link to the Food Freedom course, and there's a free module. Like you just push /free at the end of it, like you see on the webinar notes, and you can do that. So Jessica's just a good comment here. Not weighing herself anymore has improved her self-acceptance. That's in the course. I don't know if you know that, Jessica, but that's one of the first things we do is we get rid of the weigh-ins, because the weigh-in just tells you how much self-hate you should carry around with you all day. That's all you're really measuring when you step on there. If you can't step on a bathroom scale without an emotional attachment to it, then you shouldn't be stepping on it to begin with. I seriously doubt that Ange weighs herself. I don't weigh myself, haven't weighed myself in decades. And again, success leaves clues. So the more you overthink something, like Perry's saying, the worse it gets. And that is what the industry wants you to do, is to major in minor details until you, and think about it. Like I said, without self-acceptance, self-doubt and fear creeps in. And then what that does is it leaves you confused. You start gathering all this information, but you end up more confused by it. It doesn't solidify in your mind the way it does for people who have true expertise. It just leaves you more confused. Oh, but this person said this and this person said that. And you can't differentiate the true expert from the marketing expert. Very important. So Richard is just saying life changers. I hope so, Richard. I hope people are getting it. There's not, again, it's always ironic to me the number of people who say they want these webinars and then they don't tune in at all. So again, if people aren't going to participate in their own solutions, how can they expect to have solutions? I've never understood that. So Perry's just posting up a link as well, so you can see that there. Here's my anti-diet approach. People are just posting links so you can see all that. So, and then Perry's just asking a good question. Scott, what would you say to an obese person who uses fat shaming as the way to keep body criticism at bay, suggesting that people celebrate their dangerous overweight? I think you've got a contradiction. I see what you mean. Other people are fat shaming them, so they're saying they're just going to not pay attention to that and continue being the way they are. Look, if they don't have a goal to change their bodies, I'm not speaking to that audience anyway, Perry. If they're happy the way they are, they're happy the way they are. I'm not judging that. I'm fine with that. This webinar is for people who struggle, and people who struggle, who say they want the physique transformation, but I'm telling them what it really represents. It really represents a lack of authentic self-acceptance. If somebody has that at any way, in any shape or size, I'm good with that. If they're hiding behind that fact that other people fat shame them, that's a whole other thing. But I'm not talking to that audience. I'm talking about people who struggle. So, and there's people on this actual webinar who I've dealt with who struggle. And I tell them over and over again, they're seeking validation from other people. They're letting other people take their power. They don't accept themselves. They need acceptance from other people. So very, very important. So Louise, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got something out of it. I'm hoping people are getting into this. So and Perry, you're just talking about bodybuilders experience the same thing, not accepting them. I mean, I saw that the whole time I was in that career, is a lot of body dysmorphia on the side of men and women. I mean, I've talked about it. I knew guys who had heart attacks who wouldn't get off steroids because who were they if they weren't a bodybuilder, right? So they can't imagine that kind of thing. So very, very important. So I'm getting back down to the roots of it. So hopefully, if there's anything anybody wants to say right now, I mean, there's 75 comments there. So Catherine is just saying that she owns that. I'm sure that was in reference to, something up there. And then Ange is just saying, yep, she's taken a month off her diet in August, holiday time, to enjoy. Yep, I mean, that's the benefit of that kind of self-acceptance thing. It's you follow a regimen until you don't follow a regimen, and then you pick it up where you left off without any guilt or freak shows or any of that. And that's thing for sure. So and then Tony's just saying, after suffering from severe depression, ballooning up to 105 kilograms, lost 35 kilograms by just following the basic rules: eat when hungry, eat real food, keep moving, etc. So and then Marta is just saying she's been doing my exercises since last Christmas. She's been doing the hard gainer solution as well. Really love the program, and the body has changed tremendously. Such simple workouts and so effective. And that's what Einstein always said, Marta. Genius is simple, and simplicity is genius. And that's what I try to do, is melt everything down. So that's very, very important. Melinda, looks like she's taken the course, and she's saying it's a great course. So hopefully people will follow her lead and take the course, because that was this was all about. I got some really disheartening emails over the last month or so from people, and the common theme was just that lack of self-acceptance, and people thinking that their failed diet solutions over and over again were, the yellow brick road to take them back to Kansas. And that just wasn't reality. And it's hard to point that out to people who don't want to hear it. So they'll do this to me, la, 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 and they'll go on to the next hot body that promises them the next, really crazy diet solution or whatever. So, so here's a good one by Free Clark. Measuring success mainly by weekly weigh-ins was the main reason I left Weight Watchers. They may have shortened their name, but the focus is the same, and they sell fake food. That's another thing. If you really want to get serious about getting serious, I mean, I watch these commercials for Jenny Craig and Nutrisystem and all the rest, and they show ice cream, and they show pizza, and they show pasta, and they show, I mean, really, isn't that what caused the weight issue to begin with? So eat all your favorite foods and lose the weight. Somehow there's magic, and the exact same thing that caused the problem is now the exact same thing that is the solution, and yet people still want to buy into that kind of nonsense. So any food that comes through the mail isn't food. So let's get that straight as well. I can cover that in another one. So and then Tony's just saying, thank you, the most real guy out there. I don't know about that, but I try to keep it real, Tony. So that's it for me, folks, unless you have something else to add. Thanks, Free Clark. That was a great comment about Weight Watchers. And yeah, a body under constant surveillance is never going to succeed and never feel free. And for me, it should be all about being free. Fitness is supposed to be a good thing, not something to obsess over and feel guilty over and all the rest of it. So hopefully everybody understands that. I hope people benefited from it. If you did, by all means, please, hit the share button or hit some emoticons or whatever. I can't see them, but other people can. So with that, I'm back to doing the live shows, and hopefully people will tune into the live shows. I'll have different topics coming up. And as well, you can check out on my podcast as well, Smarter Sculpted Physique. And just stay tuned. And my blog, I'm doing that whole retrospective on my career from 1983, if you've been following along, right up to the current time. So hopefully you got something out of this. And if you did, I'd appreciate knowing. And again, hit the share button. And again, foodfreedomcourse.com/free. And you can get that free module and start working on a real solution instead of a phony solution. I will see you all next time.